My name is Emily, and this story is about family, favoritism, and one unforgettable entrance that no one ever saw coming. It all started when my brother graduated college, and my parents gave him a car. Not just any car. A brand new, shiny black SUV with a red bow on top. Meanwhile, I was handed an envelope with a one-way bus ticket. No speech. No hug. No smile. Just a cold pat on the back. Why? Because I had chosen to pursue art instead of business. They said I was a waste of talent. That I'd never make it. That my dreams were unrealistic. They were wrong. For years, I had always felt like the background character in my own family. My brother Daniel was the golden child. Everything he touched turned to praise in my parents' eyes, whether it was a school project, a football match, or just him walking into a room. They adored him. And me? I was tolerated. Quietly dismissed. I was the creative one, which in my family's dictionary meant confused, naive, and unrealistic. It started small. At dinner, Daniel's opinions were gold. Mine were brushed off with half smiles or changed subjects. On holidays, he got expensive gifts, latest gadgets, designer shoes, while I got hand-me-downs or something. Thoughtful but simple. I pretended not to care. I told myself, it's okay, they just don't understand me. But deep down, I did care. Every little dismissal added up like drops in a leaky faucet, building a quiet storm inside me. The real punch came after college. Daniel graduated in business administration from a top university, Dad's alma mater. I, on the other hand, chose fine arts against their wishes. They warned me. Art isn't a career, it's a hobby. You're wasting your potential. Still, I followed my heart. I spent late nights painting, submitting pieces to galleries, working side jobs to pay rent. I wasn't just chasing a dream, I was building a life, slowly, carefully, with everything I had. Graduation day arrived. Daniel was glowing in his cap and gown, my parents glowing beside him. The house was filled with balloons, laughter, and relatives. I was genuinely happy for him, but I couldn't help feeling the growing silence around my own achievements. I had just sold my first painting for $1,000. I wanted to tell someone, anyone, but it didn't seem to matter. Then came the gifts. In front of the whole family, Dad held out a key fob. To our son, who made us proud, a new chapter, a new ride. Everyone clapped. Daniel was gifted a brand new SUV. It was black, sleek, shining under the sun like something out of a car commercial. I stood there, smiling like it didn't sting. But it did. Every clap felt like a slap in slow motion. Then Mom turned to me. Emily, we didn't forget you. She handed me a white envelope. I opened it, expecting maybe a congratulatory note, a check, something small yet heartfelt. Inside was a one-way bus ticket. No card. No message. No mention of what I'd accomplished. No pride in my journey. Just a ticket. To take me home quietly. The room didn't react. They moved on like it was nothing. That night, I sat on my bed, holding the envelope in my hands like it was made of fire. I wasn't angry at the car. I was angry at the message behind the ticket. You're not worth driving. You don't belong on the same road. I started replaying moments in my head, when I brought home an art award and they told me not to get my hopes up. When I stayed up 3 nights for a gallery opening and they asked if I'd finally consider switching to marketing. When I painted a portrait of Grandma for her 80th birthday, and they replaced it on the wall with Daniel's graduation photo. It wasn't just about the ticket. It was years of silence, neglect, and polite dismissal that screamed louder than words. Then came my cousin Lily's wedding, a big family event. Everyone was going. Daniel was driving up in his SUV with his girlfriend. My parents told me casually, "We've booked you a bus seat. It leaves at 6 a.m. I stared at them. No offer to ride together. No coordination. No seats saved at the event. Just like always. Make do, be grateful, don't make a scene. But something had shifted in me since that envelope. I wasn't the quiet girl anymore. I had started gaining recognition. Small but real. I had a growing art following, a recent feature in an online magazine, and a secret project with a luxury designer that would soon change my life. And I decided, if they won't see me, I'll make sure they can't ignore me. That wedding would be the stage. I wouldn't arrive in silence this time. The day of Lily's wedding arrived with the sun glowing through my apartment window, golden and soft like a promise. But this wasn't going to be a quiet day. I had made up my mind. This time, I wouldn't blend in like wallpaper. I wouldn't sit quietly at the edge of the family photo. I wouldn't let their bus ticket energy define who I was. Over the last few weeks, while my family remained blissfully unaware, things had changed in my world. I had finally signed a partnership deal with an emerging European fashion label. My artwork was now being used for custom fabric prints. One of my pieces had even been purchased by a Hollywood stylist. My bank account wasn't overflowing, but my confidence was. I wasn't rich, but I was seen, valued, and respected by strangers more than by my own blood. So I made a call. A limousine service. White stretch, full class, privacy glass, and a professional chauffeur. Not because I wanted to show off, but because I wanted them to look me in the eye and feel what I had felt for years, shocked, excluded, unseen. When the limo pulled up outside my modest building, heads turned. The driver opened the door with a polite bow. I stepped out in a flowing, floor-length gown I had painted myself, brushstroke flowers blooming across silk, each color carefully chosen to represent rebirth, growth, and quiet strength. I wore silver heels I could barely walk in, but for that moment, I didn't care. I was walking into war with grace. The wedding venue was a grand estate. Chandeliers, champagne fountains, guests dressed like royalty. I could already see Daniel's SUV parked front and center, his girlfriend hanging on his arm. My parents stood near the entrance, laughing with relatives, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Then the limo rolled in. Heads turned. It was impossible not to notice. The car was pristine, almost glowing under the noon sun. The chauffeur got out, walked to my side, and opened the door. I stepped out. The noise fell flat. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. My aunt dropped her mimosa. I looked straight ahead, calm, collected, and completely in control. Daniel's smirk faltered. My father blinked. My mother's lips parted, but no words came out. They were frozen. Not in anger, not in joy, just confusion. Like they had suddenly realized I wasn't playing the role they wrote for me anymore. The guests stared. Some whispered. A few pulled out their phones. But I didn't gloat. I didn't wave. I didn't speak. I walked slowly, purposefully, past them, straight into the reception hall. Every step echoed like thunder in my chest. I could feel the weight of their stares on my back, but for once, it didn't make me small. It made me taller. When I reached my table, I realized something beautiful. I had been seated at the farthest edge of the venue, near the server's entry. Of course. I smiled. Instead of asking for a better seat, I made it the spotlight. Guests kept coming up to me, asking who I was, where I got my dress, if I was some kind of celebrity. I smiled, handed them my card, told them about my artwork. By the end of dinner, 3 people had followed me on Instagram, and one of the bridesmaids asked me to paint her engagement portrait. That night, Daniel came over to my table, hands in pockets. That was a dramatic entrance. I tilted my head. You think? He nodded, half smiling. Didn't know things were going so well for you. I smiled back, a little tired. That's because no one ever asked. Later, as I stood near the photo booth, my mother finally approached me. She looked uncertain, awkward, like she didn't know how to begin. Emily, the limo, the dress, you look different? I offered. No, she said softly. You look complete. I didn't say anything. I just gave her a small smile and walked away. Because that was the twist they never saw coming. They thought I was the girl with the bus ticket. But I was the woman who could afford to show up in a limo, not to prove anything, but because I had nothing left to prove. The wedding continued, the music grew louder, the laughter returned, but something had shifted. The air around me wasn't the same. Where there had once been dismissal, there was curiosity. Where there had been silence, there was now cautious attention. People who had never looked at me twice were suddenly introducing themselves, complimenting my work, asking questions, not just to be polite, but genuinely. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own family. I felt undeniable. Still, I wasn't here for validation. I didn't need applause or fake hugs or shallow words. I had already made peace with who I was long before I stepped into that limo. But now, standing in the center of everything they thought I would never become, I finally saw it in their eyes. Regret. Quiet. Lingering. Not cruel, but honest. They hadn't believed in me, not because I wasn't capable, but because their world had no room for the kind of success I chased. As the evening went on, I watched my parents from across the hall. My father, usually proud and booming, had grown uncharacteristically quiet. My mother, who always seemed so sure of herself, kept glancing in my direction, her expression unreadable. For once, it seemed they were the ones unsure of where they stood. It was near the end of the night, after most guests had left, when it finally happened. My father approached me slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. He cleared his throat like he was about to speak in front of a crowd, but his voice was low, almost uncertain. "You looked elegant tonight," he said, pausing. I looked at him, waiting. "I didn't know you were doing so well." I nodded slightly. "You never asked?" He flinched at that, not visibly, but I saw it in his eyes. The truth stung more than any insult. "I'm sorry," he said, eyes dropping to the floor. "I guess we didn't really understand you. We thought you were lost. That you'd come around to something more stable." "But I wasn't lost," I replied. "I was just choosing a different direction." He nodded slowly, still not meeting my gaze. "I see that now. And I'm proud of you. Even if I didn't say it before." That moment wasn't dramatic. There were no tears or hugs. Just honesty, finally spoken out loud. And that was enough. Later, my mother came by as I was gathering my things. She didn't say much either. But as she placed her hand on mine, gently, she whispered, "You're becoming someone extraordinary." I smiled, not because I needed to hear it, but because I had wanted it for so long, and now, when I no longer needed it, it meant more. When the limo pulled up again to take me home, I noticed something strange. My brother walking over from the parking lot. "Hey," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Hey," I replied. He glanced at the limo, then back at me. "So this whole time you were building something?" "I still am," I said with a smile. He laughed a little. "Guess I always thought I was ahead." I looked at him calmly. "You never even saw we were in the same race." He chuckled, then extended his hand. "Next time we meet, let's catch up properly. Not like strangers." I shook his hand. "Next time, I won't need a limo to be seen." The door shut behind me, and the limo pulled away from the grand estate. I looked out the tinted window, watching the lights blur into golden streaks. I thought about that envelope with the bus ticket. About the years I felt invisible. About the quiet nights I spent painting, doubting, hoping. And now? I wasn't the forgotten child anymore. I was the woman who turned a bus ticket into a stage. The girl they once overlooked had become the person they now watched in awe. Not for revenge. Not for validation. But simply because I believed in something they didn't. Me. As the limo drove me away from the estate, the silence inside the car felt different now. It wasn't heavy with the weight of rejection or bitterness, it was peaceful. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen, not because of the car, or the dress, or the dramatic entrance, but because I had stopped trying to earn approval from people who were never looking in the first place. I had spent so many years shaping myself to fit into a family mold that never had space for someone like me. I was told to be quieter, more practical, more realistic. I was told to shrink myself so others could shine brighter. And for the longest time, I believed I had to prove something. That if I just became successful enough, loud enough, bright enough, they would finally choose me. But that night, I realized something much deeper. I never needed their permission to be proud of myself. I never needed their applause to clap for my own journey. The truth is, the bus ticket wasn't just a symbol of how little they thought of me. It was also the moment I finally let go of hoping they would love me my way. Because in trying to win them over, I had forgotten how far I had already come. Every painting, every gallery rejection, every lonely night when I wondered if I'd made a mistake, it all mattered. It had shaped me. And in the end, it had freed me. I looked out the limo window, watching the city lights blur like brushstrokes on a moving canvas. Somewhere behind me, the family I had tried so hard to impress was now left with the image of a daughter who no longer begged for their validation. I didn't do it to hurt them. I didn't do it to humiliate them. I did it to finally take back the power I had given away for years. Because when you stop chasing the love that ignores you, you begin to find the love that lives inside you. And that love? That belief in myself? It had been the real vehicle carrying me all along, not the limo, not the dress, not the recognition. When I reached home, I didn't feel like I was returning from a battle. I felt like I had just completed a painting that took years to finish. Not perfect, not symmetrical, but raw, human, and real. I stood in front of my mirror, barefoot, dress flowing gently around my ankles, and I whispered something I hadn't said in a long, long time. I'm proud of you. Not for the entrance. Not for the success. But for the courage it took to keep going when no one clapped. For the strength to rise again every time I was overlooked. For the decision to love myself even when my own family couldn't. The next morning, I woke up to messages I hadn't expected. My cousin sent a photo of me stepping out of the limo with the caption, "You looked like someone out of a movie." My aunt wrote, "I had no idea you were doing so well. I'd love to commission something for my office." Even Daniel left a voice note, saying, "You really surprised me, Em. I guess we all underestimated you." But the message that hit hardest was from my mother. Just a single line. "I'm sorry we didn't see you sooner. But I see you now." I sat in bed, tears quietly falling. Not because of regret, but because for the first time, their words didn't define my worth. I had already defined it myself. That bus ticket was never a destination, it was a doorway. And the limo? It wasn't about revenge or drama. It was about reclaiming the space I was always meant to walk in, with my head high, my heart whole, and my past no longer holding the brush. Because I am not the forgotten one anymore. I am the artist of my own story. And this was just the beginning of a masterpiece.